Hi everybody. Today we're going to talk about down tuning. Down tuning on the 12 string is really common. When I first got my very first 12 string back in the mid 1970s, I bought a 1970s Takamine, which back in that time they made copies of Martin instruments, and mine this was like a copy of a D18 12 string. And I put the first set of strings on it and tune it up, and just tuning it up, bang, I break the octave on the 12 string. Go back to the music store, buy a couple of extras, put one on, play for a couple hours, bang, it goes again. And I'm going like, what's the deal with this string? I check everything for like burrs up here, make sure there's nothing sharp on the tuning peg, check the nut and the bridge, everything's fine. And I'm complaining about it, and the guy at the music store tells me, because I'm only like about 15, no, how old? I was about 17 at the time, I guess. And the guy tells me, well, you should tune the thing down. I said, what do you mean tune it down? He says, yeah, most 12-string players tune it down a half step or a whole step. And I was like, wow, well, that's an idea. So it's kind of weird, and most people would say, well, that's not a good idea, because if you go to play with somebody else, you're not going to be in tune with them. You're going to have to use a capo. If you tune down one half step and you're going to play with the guitarist who's in standard tuning, you have to put a capo on the first fret. If you're tuned down a whole step, then you'd have to put a capo on the second fret. It's easy enough to do, but it can be an inconvenience for some folks. And some people are just like, well, I never want to change anything. The guitar is supposed to be tuned E, A, D, G, B, E. I'm never tuning anything different than that. And they get real dogmatic about the thing there. And they'll say, oh, my 1950s Martin guitar has had the same strings on it for 50 years, and it never goes out of tune, and I've kept it tuned to an E, and the neck didn't warp or anything on it. But if you look at what they do, they never play past the third fret. They're just strumming G, C, D, and they're happy with that. They can't play anything that's particularly athletic on the thing, and that's fine if that's what they enjoy doing. But down tuning gives you some options, and today we're going to talk about those particular options. So my Ovation here, this is a 1977 thereabouts Ovation. This is tuned in standard tuning. Standard tuning is great, especially for like accompaniment stuff. Wonderful, jangly, rich, strong mid-range. And there's enough punch in the bass to really give you a good accompaniment. But it's that high, jangly, high end that we love to hear. That's what draws us to the 12 string in most cases. Just that sound. It's a wonderful sound. But there's some options. If I want to play something maybe kind of in the vein of Leo Kottke or something. There's something in it that leaves me wanting to hear a little more bass, a little more oomph to it. This is where down tuning comes in. Also, this guitar, the string tension's really high. I have really super light strings on it. The lightest strings I can usually find typically are D'Addario extra lights, which are a 9 to about a 45 on the top. Or my faithful viewer, Oscar Stern, he's going to put it in the comment that you can buy such and such a brand of string, Tomastic Infeld or Labella or something, some strings that cost you like 3 times as much as regular, but you can find strings that'll have like a 6 or a 7. He always tells me about those strings. I've never tried them yet. I tell him that I probably can't feel a 6 or 7 underneath my fingers. I play bass as well as the the 12 string, and I'm used to big old fat strings, so it's like if I put a 6 on there, it'd be like thinner than a human hair, I think. I don't know that I would even feel like there was a string underneath my finger. So it doesn't work for me. I buy what's commercially available and what's affordable. I have 8 12 strings, and trying to keep them in strings is enough to keep me broke half the time anyway. So this is standard tuning. I'm going to bring a guitar here in a second that's tuned 1/2 step down, and you can check out what we got there. Okay, stand by. Different guitar, same strings. These again are those D'Addario 9 to 45 extra light gauge. This guitar, obviously there's going to be some sound differences. It's a bigger body than the Ovation. It's different woods, different scale length, but you're going to mainly hear the difference in the sound that's caused by the down tuning. This guitar is tuned 1/2 step low. Things that you feel right off playing this guitar is that the string tension is considerably lower, just tuned 1/2 step down. The strings don't have as much tension on them. I rarely break the high G string here on it because it's tuned to an F sharp instead of a G. Now, down tuning. Now, this just means if you hooked up your electronic tuner here, instead of reading an E for this string, it's tuned to a D sharp. The A string is tuned to a G sharp. The D string is tuned to a C sharp. So everything is 1/2 step low. Now, it still retains a lot of sparkle, but there's a little more bass response. So it has a richness to it that the Ovation doesn't have. It also has a little more sustain because there's less tension on the top. Now, if you have a guitar and you say you've been tuning a standard tuning and you tune your 12 string down now to a D, you may notice that you have to tweak the truss rod a little bit because the difference in the tension might make the truss rod will pull back on the neck a little bit more. So you may end up with some notes up here that are just too low and may buzz a little bit. So you have to decide kind of where you're going to tune it and then kind of keep it at that tuning. I'm going to tell you another trick about that in just a minute with the next guitar. So this, you hear the difference though between the 12 string and standard and the 12 string 1/2 step low. Let's now check a couple of guitars that are tuned a whole step low. Again, different guitar, different body style, different woods. That's all going to have a little bit of difference in the tone of the instrument, but not as substantial as the strings and the string tension. In this case, I've got different strings on here. These are a Martin standard light. This goes from a 10 to a 47 on the top, if I remember correctly, and it's a bronze or phosphor bronze mix. So these are a little bit heavier strings than what were on the previous two instruments. Now, in this case, this is tuned a whole step low. So on my tuner, my E string reads as a D, my A string reads as a G. Now my chords and everything are all the same. It's just tuned lower. Now if I'm going to play, let's do that Leo Kottke's kind of style thing. Much more depth this has in the low end. Man, it's just powerful, and this is tuned a whole step down. That's it. The heavier strings allow me to have more mass moving, but because it's tuned down a whole step, the string tension is reduced. So string tension wise, compared to this guitar and the last one I just played, is about the same, but this one has a whole lot deeper low end than the other one, simply because there's more mass moving the top and on that low end. So this one, now if I was going to do some strummy kind of stuff on this one, tuned a whole step low, let's try this. can work, but it doesn't have quite, sorry about that, I just banged the microphone with my hand there. It doesn't have quite the richness of the high end that the Ovation or the Alvarez that I was just playing, that they have in that higher register. The standard tuning really excels in that area. So if you're going to have a guitar that you're doing that kind of jangly, strummy stuff, standard tuning is probably going to work for you. Let me come back with one more instrument and then we'll wrap up. Different guitar again. This is my Guild. Large body chamber, about the same size as the Alvarez, but it's a little bit deeper. It has an arched back, so there's a larger sound chamber. It moves more air. This one is tuned a whole step low. You get the idea. This one has a little bit heavier strings yet. Even though it's tuned a whole step low, this one uses Martin flexible core bronze strings that have I think it goes a 10 to a 52 on the top. So the bass end is a little bit heavier on this one. This gives me a little more robust, deep sound. I call this guitar the piano, mainly because it's black, and when you play like the low E, boom, you can just feel this thing rattling in your chest. Just the vibrations it has is great. Now this is the one I would default to for doing any kind of like Leo Kottke fast picking stuff, just because the bass depth on this one is this has like just a ton of low end. Partially that's the choice of the strings and because of the string tension. Scale length is about the same between the last two or three guitars, but just having a little more mass vibrating here with these lower strings gives you more bass in, and the string tension is just a little bit more. But this is tuned down a whole step to a D. In the past, I have had guitars that I've tuned down to a C sharp. That's about as low as I would normally go. Occasionally, I dabbled around with tuning down to a low C. When I would do that, I would actually go up to a medium gauge of string. There used to be a brand called D'Angelico. They still make guitars, but you can't find their strings anymore. And they used to make a wonderful brass wound string set that their light was about the equivalent of a medium. It went from an 11 down to a 54 or something like that. The tension on those was great, and the cool thing was it had a wound octave string for the A. So that just had a real thumpy kind of sound that worked great for those real low tunings. And you could tune down to a C with that one comfortably, and it sounded really solid and really great. I have had mediums on this one before, and just the darkness of the tone of this instrument was just too much for it, so I preferred to tune it to D and then just use the Martin flexible core strings on there. If you have seen the old Stella guitars like what Leadbelly played, those instruments have a longer scale length, like a 26 or a 26.5-inch scale length. They're braced a little bit differently. And one of the things that with those, they are tuned up with medium strings, but they tune them all the way down to a C. So that is this real rich, deep bass sound on those that gives them their characteristic sound, and you could be walking the bass strings on it. But if you were to tune one of those guitars with those kind of strings up to concert pitch, it would kind of fold in half. The top would probably collapse on it. The neck might pull up. It's like disastrous things could happen. Just a note, if you have a new 12-string and it's under warranty, you may want to check with your warranty to see what the manufacturer recommends. Only Taylor and Ovation were really the only manufacturers I ever saw that could warranty their guitars all the way up to concert pitch, their 12 strings to concert pitch. Everybody else recommended that you tune a half step down. Martin, Gibson, others. My Ovation up here that I played, it's a 77. I tune it to standard pitch. It's fine with that as long as I use light enough strings. I would not want to tune my Moon guitar, the one in the middle back over here, up to a standard pitch with like a standard gauge light on it. It can handle that, but over the long haul, I don't think that would be particularly good for the instrument. So it's there. You can leave a comment and give me your opinions on it. Like I said, I've known people who say like, oh, you should always tune at concert pitch, and but they're not after the same musical effects that I'm after, trying to get those low sounds, that richness. Leo Kottke's own signature model is just tuned down to like a C or a C sharp, and it's strung up with like John Pierce medium strings, and it's braced accordingly. It's even braced differently, but they don't recommend that that guitar be tuned up to standard pitch. They recommend that that would be tuned to that really low, almost baritone tuning. So it's something worth checking out. But be aware that 12-string players do that. When you listen to somebody and you go like, wow, that's a really great sound, but you're having trouble getting that sound on the guitar, you might want to investigate whether or not they're down tuning, and you can play around with that, and you may find some things that you really, really enjoy about it. Again, like, subscribe, share, leave me a comment. Let me know whether you down tune or not. I just did a survey, and I was surprised at how many people tuned down to D. I figured a few people might tune down to like a D sharp, E flat, whatever, but I was surprised to see how many people tuned down to D. About 40% of you tuned down to D. Awesome. I'm in that same club. The guitar just sounds great in that range, and it feels great too. If you tune lower, let me know. So check out in the community and fill out that survey. And thanks for watching this video, and we'll catch you next time here on the channel. Bye-bye.